Joining me this morning, Emma Wolfe, writer, journalist and broadcaster. Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
Lovely to be here.
Well, lovely to see you as well. Lots going on in the papers. Let's talk about, if we can, this front page of the Times.
Yeah.
The headline is really strong, actually. Long-term sick should be forced to seek work. But the rest of it, I'm less sure about the detail behind it.
Yeah, so this is Liz Kendall, the current Work and Pension Secretary, and Alan Milburn, former Labour Party grandee, former Health Secretary and now a health advisor to Labour. And it sounds that the headline sounds quite, almost punitive, doesn't it? It sounds like they're going to be long-term sick, are going to be forced into work. Actually, what Liz Kendall is saying in league with Milburn is that they want to encourage people, they want to support the long-term sick back into work. As you said, there's 9.4 million people not in employment or looking for a job at the moment. 2.8 million of those are off work because of long-term sickness. So it sounds like Kendall's being a bit softer. She's saying it's not about clampdowns or punishment. It's about giving people the support they need. Because you have to admit, oh, yeah, there are some lazy people, there are some people malingering, whatever. There are some people who are on waiting lists. If you've got a back problem and you can't get that operation, how can you work? I think she's talking about sort of helping people, adaptations, is there another kind of work you could do, that kind of thing. Milburn is saying, we've got to deal with this, we need fundamental reform of a crazy system. He is claiming, Milburn found that 7 out of 10 economically inactive people wanted to work, but had little support or requirement to do so.
Well, but also he says, well, actually, we need to look at the mental health crisis, anxiety as well. I'll tell you what, I'd be anxious if I'm sitting at home twiddling my thumbs.
Exactly,
doing nothing.
It's the worst thing for you. Mental health, inactivity, depression, and anxiety are massively fueled by not working.
But we locked people up.
Yes.
We said you can't go to work.
We paid people huge amounts for a couple of years. Is it any wonder that lots of them carried on doing the same old thing? Lots of people just fell out of the jobs market in that way, were made redundant or whatever, and didn't go back to work. He's also talking about the fact that, this is a way of dealing with our reliance on immigration. We keep hearing people say, but we need those people. We need the carers. We need people from abroad, the NHS. We need those people to look after our old people. Well, there are a lot of people who are not working at the moment who are receiving benefits. The welfare bill is absolutely staggering. So it's all part of this. I'm still not clear how Labour are going to deal with this.
Well, I don't think they are, actually. And also, she went on, this is Liz Kendall, dismissed claims by the predecessor, that was Mel Stride, that labelling everyday worries as mental health problems was pushing up the benefits bill. I actually think he's got a point, which is actually, if you say anxiety, oh, it's a mental illness and therefore you need to stigmatise and have labelling and deviance as a result of that, then of course people won't go back to work. But is it any wonder? It used to be called,
David, it used to be called having a bad day or being depressed. It's now called anxiety disorders. We have a generation, and that's for older people, but we have a generation of young people who are being labelled and diagnosed with every single disorder. Even children, it's ADHD. No, sometimes it's not ADHD. It's bad behaviour. Kids are naughty. It doesn't always need to be a label, and I'm just sick of it. And I think that the more we get into this mental health thing, which, of course, serious mental health should be seen, this thing about kind of giving parity to mental health and mental illness and physical illness. It is important if it's serious mental illness, but I think, as you say, we've basically pathologised a whole raft of normal human experiences. You break up with your boyfriend, yeah, you're going to feel depressed. You have a challenging day, yeah, you're going to feel down. It's part of life. You still need to get up, put your clothes on, pull your socks up and go to work. And you'll feel better. You'll feel better if you do.
And I was going to say exactly that. The distraction technique of going to work, of course, means that your mind is focused elsewhere.
If I have 2 days off, I start to go crazy because you start to have too much time to think, and you know.
You do. Let's move on to the Daily Telegraph. GPs threat to see fewer patients in a pay round. I can't help think that the BMA, British Medical Association, is getting very militant. And of course, it has the government over a barrel with the junior doctors.
It has Labour up against the wall.
Yeah, over 35% pay increase. Now, family doctors are voting on whether to take part in national collective action with work to rule measures to be introduced from next week. Now, as I said, there are about 37 patient interactions a day, which is a lot.
Hold on, patient contact. So lots of this can be over the phone.
Well,
these aren't necessarily GPs sitting in surgery seeing a patient.
I'm going to stick up for the doctors here because it does depend on your surgery. But essentially what they're saying is they're going to drop those numbers. The GPs, by the way, got a really good settlement. Let's not forget.
I was going to say, I'm still sort of slightly spitting from what you said at the beginning there. 153,000 for the average GP salary. I mean, even if that's for 5 days a week, I would still contend that lots of that is done from home. A lot of one's appointments are still over the phone, David. Come on.
And of course, increasingly with the COVID pandemic as well.
There are all sorts of other ways. A friend of mine is a GP, and checking bloods and things like that, which you can sit there doing that on your phone. There are plenty of ways to top up your cash.
I mean, so GPs are being told they can pick and choose from these measures, so huge numbers of measures, but essentially, as far as I can see, this is the union flexing its muscles yet again. And of course, if you've got these two headlines together, you're saying that we need to get economically inactive people back into work. But then you've then got people like Alan Milburn actually saying, well, what we need to do is to involve the GP far more in this. So the GP caught once again in the middle of it. Actually, I want GPs to concentrate on medicine.
Yeah, and see patients and seeing patients. And you're right, this is the crux of the issue, is that so many people now, apart from the waiting lists, so many people are struggling to get a GP appointment. Yeah. So many people are doing, probably, well, in an hour and a half, will be doing the 8 a.m. juggle of getting on that phone and being told they're 53rd in the queue and can't see a GP and all of that. And this is, I don't think the GPs are caught in the middle. I think that the patients are caught in the middle of all this.
Well, it's an appalling service.
Because you've got GPs on one side, you've got the unions on the other, and then you've got Labour. We're not clear what they're going to do. We're not clear what Keir Starmer's line is going to be on this ongoing pay demands.
So I was reading this morning...
Generally, across the public sector.
Well, that's right. And also, just in terms of the 35% pay uplift for junior doctors, it looks like Wes Treating is going to come back with about 13.5%, we believe. But that is exactly what the previous government did, but was rejected by the BMA, which is increasingly militant. Let's move on and talk about the Bibby Stockholm, because obviously... Well, here we go again. But, I mean, the bill for illegal migrants in this country is absolutely off the charts. £8 million every single day. And this is the big headline. Labour is going to cease using the Bibby Stockholm.
It was the craziest plan ever, though. I mean, yes, I don't want people in hotels and expensive apartments paying millions a day, to house these people. But the idea of this floating boat, it was a disaster from the beginning. Do you remember the delays? Then it was overrun with Legionella. The people in Portland, in Dorset, are delighted about this. Yeah. But so when the contract comes up for renewal, they're going to stop using the Bibby Stockholm.
Yeah, because they're going to give amnesty to 100,000 people who are already caught by the illegal migration bill, and they say they're going to let them all in. Well, they didn't say that, but that's what they will
say
do.
They're going to deal with the backlog.
Rubbish.
Where are these people going to go?
So just look at, even yesterday we heard 75% of them will be allowed into this country. Now, we don't know anything about these people. We've already seen huge problems with crime from those people coming into this. Not everyone who comes into this country.
The majority of these people are young men, and we know that there are economic migrants. And the fact is, you're right, if you change the parameters a bit, you've suddenly dealt with the asylum, you've suddenly dealt with the problem of all these asylum seekers whose claims haven't been processed. So you no longer have the 100,000 if you just let them go.
So there's also, tied in with this is Rwanda, of course, which was scrapped on day one.
And how many? 700, the latest is 700 million to deport about 4 people. I mean, it's so scandalous.
Well, 3 of those were Home Secretaries.
David, it makes me so angry, though, when I think of the old people, when I think of the people that actually need help in this country, British people who've worked and paid into the system, and we bat these numbers around, millions here, millions there. If it's anything close, £700 million, it's scandalous where that money has gone, and no one being held to account.
So the upshot of this is the plane is still chartered for today, and it's believed that actually it will take off with people going to Vietnam. About 50, I think. We'll talk more about that later on. Also, if you're going to shut down the Bibby Stockholm, at least it was some kind of deterrent. And then you've got to ask yourself about what about RAF Scampton, Wethersfield, and it looks like the Labour government will shut those as well.
Yes, and I think Scampton was never really. I mean, these places were disasters, really. I don't think Scampton ever properly got up and running.
It took no migrants.
It took no migrants. There we go. At what cost? If it makes me... do you remember the Millennium Dome? No.
Yes, of course I do.
No, the Nightingale Hospital.
Yes.
Never
used.
Were they ever used?
No, they weren't. So the one at XL in East London was never used, actually.
Literally never used.
And a colleague of mine went and filmed there just to show what they'd done. Yet again, I mean, it's easy for government to spend millions, as you say, hundreds of millions of pounds.
Millions of pounds.
No accountability.
No accountability. No one will ever be held to account for that.
I just want to move on, if I can, very quickly to The Sun.
Yeah.
Where are we? This is The Sun. Page 8. Yeah, Nigel Farage made his maiden speech in Parliament.
He said he's had a while to think about it.
He has
Probably
had a while.
Only 7 goes at the tilt.
And of course, you see, look...
I'm sure you've written a few imaginary maiden speeches in your time.
I haven't actually, but I have spoken in the European Parliament, which was a very odd encounter, actually. I spoke multiple times, actually, in the European Parliament. But Nigel Farage, as you rightly say, has had time to think about it. This is his maiden speech yesterday in the Houses of Parliament.
We will not stop the boats, even if we sent a handful to Rwanda. We will not stop the boats by attempting to smash the criminal gangs. We've been doing that to the drugs industry in Britain year after year, decade after decade, with no success whatsoever. We will only stop this if we start deporting people that come illegally. Then they won't pay the smugglers. But we'll only do that by leaving the ECHR. But I've got a fun suggestion that I think would liven up politics, engage the public, and see a massively increased turnout. Why don't we have a referendum on whether we continue to be members of the ECHR?
Yeah, that's my response.
Yeah, I think the ECHR is one of those issues, a bit like the border down the Irish Sea. I don't think most people understand it, right? But I think they don't like the ECHR. They don't like it. All they know is Europe telling us what to do, innit?
Correct. So
and I speak as someone who's on that side, so I'm not taking the mickey.
There will be people having breakfast who know exactly what that means, and you've got the pyjama injunctions and people leaping out, judges leaping out of bed in their pyjamas and stopping us having our sovereign democratic right to remove people from this country.
It's true, it's true. I think it'd be hugely popular. I love that Nigel says it's a fun suggestion, as if this country needs any more elections, referendums, any more divisiveness. It would be fun to have another go at this, and I think it would electrify people. I think he's right. You get a much bigger turnout for a referendum on leaving the ECHR than you would for the recent general election.
Let me throw that out to you. Should we have a referendum on leaving the ECHR?